Always great to have Justin Rogers from the Detroit News with us on a Thursday, Locked On Lions.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. A Thursday, July 27th and a Friday, July 28th, an off day for the Lions. That is why we get this guy bright and early today, recording on a Thursday morning. The great Justin Rogers is with us from the Detroit News. As he is with us today, we'll talk about training camp and what has been going on. Of course, find us on Twitter, at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, on Threads, at The Real Matt Derry, and, of course, the Matt Derry Facebook fan page and on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Justin, great to see you, my friend. How are things going?
How are you keeping track of all that social media? It's too much.
Well, we can follow you on Twitter at Justin_Rogers. Are you on Threads yet?
I have an account. That is the extent of it.
Yeah.
I'm a one social media guy, and quite frankly, that might be too many.
Yes. Well, so far, I think you've stayed under the radar lately. I have not seen anybody attacking you as of late, so that's probably a good thing.
Well, I hope I'm not doing anything deserving of being attacked, but I mean, such is life, right?
Oh, no question about it. All right. What's it been like in Allen Park? This is, I mean, you've been around, how many years for you now? 11 covering the team?
I think it might be 12, 11,
12?
somewhere in that ballpark. I don't really keep track all that. Once you get past a decade, right? It's like when you're 25, you can rent a car. It's the last thing you check off the bucket list. Like,
that's right.
Birthdays become just a number.
But do you remember this kind of enthusiasm, energy, both fan base, organization, media? I mean, this is wild right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day, right? Like the first day of training camp is always kind of a circus. There's just so many people there, and I don't think that was at an unusual level this year, but where that enthusiasm really exists at a level that's maybe unmatched from previous years is the fans. And look, it's justified. Everybody has this hope springs eternal attitude, all 32 teams, all 32 fan bases during training camp. But, this is a team that finished strong, is young, it's added pieces, it's clearly set up to be continued on the rise. And so, momentum maybe necessarily isn't a real thing from year to year, but the Lions are on a track that says contender, division title contender for the first time in 30 years, playoff contender, not just to sneak into the dance, but to, potentially make some noise. And, maybe not quite at that Super Bowl contender level yet, but on that road, at least, we can say at this time.
Do you feel like all of and I know Dan Campbell made the point of saying the other day, the hype train is out of control, but do you feel like finally it's real and warranted based off of not just, like you said, the roster's improved, and you've seen it covering this team for the Detroit News. There's been some bad teams, but also the fact that the division and the conference is not that good.
I think you kind of hit on all the points, right? Again, you go back to the finish last year, however many games it was, 8 out of 10 at the end there, that they emerged victorious. It's a young defense that got a ton of experience playing together, building chemistry, and you saw that even though they finished still statistically the worst defense in football last year, there was marked improvements down the stretch. They made some upgrades of note there in the secondary with Jack Campbell at linebacker, and offensively, like top 5 offense last year, and really, what did you lose? You lost DJ Chark. I think a good player, but certainly wasn't there for the full season last year, and you kind of you upgraded your backfield. Your offensive line looks like it's a little bit more reinforced with Graham Glasgow coming back to maybe handle an injury or two. They should be as good as ever on offense, and so And then you go to the division, right? Aaron Rodgers out of the division. That's good news, no matter which way you slice it. Minnesota Vikings, I think, were kind of fluky last year, and I think maybe kind of is underselling it with all their
Yeah.
one-score wins. And Chicago's building something too, but they haven't turned the corner that the Lions have. All their investments that they made this offseason in free agency and the draft, like they still need to put it on tape, right? You still need to see it with those guys. You've reached that point with the Lions where you've seen it with a lot of their young players. So, they're still trailing the Lions in the rebuild process.
Training camp week 1 is kind of nearly in the books here. I know they're off today and back tomorrow, but what stands out for you so far?
So early in the offseason, OTAs, minicamp, the defense looked much improved, and we're making life pretty hard for Jared Goff. Like getting their hands on balls, coming up with some interceptions. That script has flipped in a very dramatic way. This offense looks crisp. Jared Goff is off to as good of a start as I've seen of any Lions quarterback, Stafford included, during training camp. I mean, just the confidence that he has with the offense. The eyes are looking downfield. He's looking for the long ball first before checking down. The accuracy, the zip, the chemistry with Amon-Ra is just, there's no way to describe it other than it's darn near perfect. I mean, they have this symmetry going right now that's just unmatched. And the new pieces are fitting in well. You can see the potential of Sam Laporta, and obviously we're going to see more of that as the pads come on here. But this offense should be very good. And it's also been, Aaron Glenn's back to pulling his hair out, right? Like, I'm not saying the defense is going to be worse in the league again, but man, Ben Johnson is winning this chess match right now.
How much of that is Gardner Johnson not being out there right now?
It certainly makes a difference, right? Like, not only is that an outstanding player, he's kind of got that emotional heartbeat characteristic to him. He's just so intense and so fiery, and that kind of spreads, to the entire defense. And they've got other guys with that kind of energy and intensity, but not quite at his level. So, you never want to get a point where, offense or defense, you remove one player outside of maybe the quarterback position. It's excusable, but where one guy leaves and the thing kind of crumbles. Will Harris is fine as a stopgap. I think he's proven that he can be a stopgap for a game or two here. And Brian Branch is, really, really flashing some potential, and he, in a lot of ways, mirrors Gardner Johnson's role. I think we've all looked at that as he's that guy in 2024. So they have at least options there, but it's tough to replace that just raw energy.
Justin Rogers, Detroit News, DebtNews.com, covers the Lions, does a fantastic job, and really a part of, I think, and I've said this before too, Justin, the best beat in town in terms of the writers and all the guys and girls that cover this team. All right, so, spots kind of, Glasgow versus Vaitai, we could break that down, and obviously Sam Laporta, it looks like, will be tight end one when all this thing shakes out. But what about that receiver room? Is anybody that you're watching that you like that's kind of elevating themselves? J-Mo being hurt right now and obviously missing those games. Gibbs, I think, will be out wide a lot. But who else is standing out so far, at least, of that receiver room?
I think they're going to have some tough decisions as this thing kind of goes on and we see what they have to offer in the joint practices and in the preseason games. But the top is fairly established, right? Like, you've got Amon-Ra, you've got Khalif Raymond, you got Josh Reynolds. Like, those guys are known commodities. I'm extraordinarily intrigued by Denzel Mims. I thought the trade was brilliant, to give up nothing essentially if it doesn't work out, and if it does work out, between the swap of the picks, it's essentially a high 7th rounders value. Like, that's nothing for a guy with his gifts. When he comes off that field, he just looks like a different elite body type with that 6'3", kind of wiry lower body, but maybe stronger than I think people expect upper body. elite speed, pretty good change of direction, elite leaping ability, and he's shown pretty good hands in the handful of times we've seen him. He's working with the second team offense still. He's still kind of getting his feet wet with the offense, but I'm really, really intrigued to see what he offers as he gets up with some of the higher groups. And then, another guy that's interesting is Green, the 7th-round draft pick, right? I think you go into a training camp and you don't expect a whole lot of those 6th and 7th-round draft picks. And every once in a while you get a Malcolm Rodriguez that pops off and ends up starting and playing a big role. But, that there's a logjam. I don't expect Green to start or anything, but he's shown that he has some deep threat ability. He's really kind of formed this early chemistry with backup quarterback Nate Sudfeld, and they've just sprinkled him the smallest amount, a snap here, 2 snaps there into the first team offense, just showing you how that development is going in the coaching staff's eyes. They're pleased with what they're seeing. He didn't do a lot during the spring just because of a minor undisclosed injury, but I think he might be somebody that could give you that Quintez Cephas type rookie season, right? Like 15 to 20 catches and maybe a couple explosive plays here and there where you go, all right, that's not a bad guy to have as your number 5.
I hope you're proud of me. We're 11 minutes in, and I have not asked you about the back. I know you hate the backup quarterback talk, so I let it go. I let it go.
All right.
All right, more with Justin Rogers coming up next. I want to talk to him about the defense a little bit more. And yes, we got to talk about the kickers. That's always exciting. We will do that coming up next. First, I got to tell you about our friends at eBay Motors. We have partnered up with them and teamed up with our Locked On Fantasy Football host, Vinny Iyer, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's edition of eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Look, folks, Joe Burrow's the guy. We know that. With the top tier of quarterbacks on the board in fantasy football drafts in 2023, there's another line of luxury passers and runners who are guaranteed fit for your starting lineups every week. And one of them is the Bengals' Joe Burrow, who remains a classic pick in the top 6 quarterbacks or the QB1s with his profile, reliability, and offense that has great weapons, as we know. Burrow will get it done again, humming along for big numbers in Cincinnati. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit as well. And that goes for your vehicle too. Same with it. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle, right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And to make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up. Because now you know they'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your car, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Our man Justin Rogers with us from the Detroit News. A lot of props, certainly, Justin, like you said, for the offense so far. Defensively, Aiden Hutchinson makes the top 100, NFL.com and all of that. And I'm sure there'll be some other Lions that make that list. But what about Hutch? What else do you like that is kind of coming up? And certainly this linebacking core is the best it's been in years, right?
Yeah, it's tough to evaluate the defensive line right now, right? We haven't seen them in pads. We're not seeing them against the offensive line in pads. So there's only so much you could tell. I really am. I've been intrigued by Aleem McNeil before going into camp. To hear he loses another 20 pounds and just the one thing I would say about Aleem early in his career is he's been solid. He's been a steady 3rd round pick starter, but maybe hasn't lacks the fire that you want to see sometimes from guys that just motor, undeniable physicality and passion, and he's just kind of a laid back guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to see him take this more seriously, to recognize that in his self-evaluation and to approach it the way he has this offseason, I think is a credit to him. And I want to see how it translates on the field. You
Yeah.
drop down to 305 pounds and you got Frank Ragnow saying he's as strong as he's ever been. Well, if he's still strong and now he's got a little bit more burst and speed, like maybe this 3 tech thing works out. And that's exciting, I think. Linebacker room is as you say, it's probably the best I've seen here since the Tulloch, Levy, Durant days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think that a clear starter is going to emerge, and that's a good thing, right? Like Jack Campbell looks very good, and he looks much better than he did in spring. He's very good coming forward. I think Malcolm Rodriguez still continues to show those elite level instincts that will not allow him to be benched. He's too good to not find a role in the defense. And I'm a little bit more skeptical about Derek Barnes. I know the coaching staff is raving about him, and rightfully so, for at least the work that he's putting in on the mental side of things, the tape study side of things, the understanding of the defense. I've seen him make some plays in his opportunities, but again, it's kind of what I said about the Chicago Bears. I need to see it on film before I'm ready to buy in to invest in Derek Barnes. But I think that's going to be a situation where all those guys are going to play. All those guys are going to have packages. Maybe Campbell ends up being the lead dog, as he should, as a first-round draft pick with his skill set. But I don't think this is like Malcolm Rodriguez is strictly a special teamers from here on forward. It's just not reality with how talented he is in certain aspects of the game. And obviously the secondary, it's still a work in progress, right? Cam Sutton's still kind of getting his bearings here. Kirby Joseph is a young player. He's a super exciting young playmaker, but for as many plays as he made last year, there was a lot of boneheaded errors. You want to see those trimmed from a young safety in his second season. So far, so good. But again, let's see it in the preseason. Let's see it in those joint practices. He's kind of right there behind Gardner Johnson too. I mean, he's just always talking. You could always hear Kirby Joseph, whether he's on the field, off the field. He's just a guy that's always talking. I think he's going to be a fan favorite in this town for a long time to come. And so what I've been saying about the defense is, look, you don't need to go from worst to first. You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, would that be championship caliber adjustments? Absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But if it goes from 32nd to 20th in the league and you can maintain a top 5 offense, that's all you need to be a team that can contend in this league for division titles, for playoff victories, and ultimately you're not far from Super Bowl conversation with that kind of statistical output.
If you had to put money down, would you bet on Patterson, Romo, or other?
That's a good old other. Man, this team has just had a revolving door of kickers since Prater left, and it's wild.
Crazy.
And I really thought they'd found something in Badgley. And look, there were limitations to his game that we knew coming in. He didn't have a monster leg, but guy walks in, he makes 20 of 24 field goals. He shows some decent leg strength on those 50-yard attempts. He's reliable on extra points. I thought they were pretty good with it. I mean, the fact that they re-signed him and gave him a little guaranteed money, it seemed like a natural fit. Riley Patterson comes available. They bring him back. I'm thinking, okay, camp insurance. No, Riley Patterson is currently the front runner once again. And I hadn't thought about it in the way that Dan Campbell presented it, but Patterson and Badgley's scouting report are very similar. Really reliable, accurate, trustworthy kickers. And although he didn't say this is my words, but within a certain range, probably within 45 yards, and then you start getting to that 50 and beyond, and it's a little shakier, right? I wonder in that situation, you get to a point where you got a 55-yarder, a chance to win a game. Like most teams in this league, you feel good about your kicker having a shot to make that. Maybe they're not as accurate as you like, but they've got the leg strength. And those guys, it's like when you're driving on the golf club, driving on the golf course, and you need to get a little bit further, and you swing your driver a little bit harder. The accuracy goes out of the window for most of us amateurs, right? That's kind of how I feel about Riley Patterson. Romo has the leg. Kid's got a monster leg. I saw him hit a 64-yarder in practice very early in his first days here. I've seen him boot well beyond 60 yards in his attempts. They say he's got some development to worry about. He's in the trailing position right now. In terms of the kicks we've seen, they've been just about equal. But I think they trust Patterson more if it gets to that point, just because he has that NFL level experience. He did it in Jacksonville last year. But, man, got to look out for other, man. Always got to look out for other on this.
Oh, yeah, and especially with Brad Holmes. No question about it. All right, I'm going to ask Justin for some predictions and expectations. Got a couple more minutes with him coming up next. This episode, though, is brought to you by our friends at Marg's Sparkling Margaritas. Like you guys know, I love a good drink after work, on the weekends, whatever it is. Forget White Claws and High Noons. They're out. I'm telling you, I stumbled upon Marg's local product, and they are fantastic. Sparkling margaritas, 5 unique flavors, including the coconut margarita, which is fantastic. Crafted with real Blanco tequila, Marg's clean, crisp, and genuinely taste so good. Love them most. Kicking back on a hot day. It's scorching hot today. Grab yourself a Marg's for backyard barbecues, boat trips, whatever. Go to the website, sipmargs.com to find a retailer near you where you can get yourselves these great margaritas. Come find a retailer near you at sipmargs.com. You got to be 21 and over to enjoy. Cheers, and please drink responsibly. All right, quickly with Justin Rogers here. Expectations. What would you say would be considered a successful season? What would be a disappointment when this whole thing shakes out in January?
I think unquestionably a successful season is getting off the snide and winning the NFC North for the first time ever. I mean, I think people forget that sometimes, that this team has never won since the league realigned. I think they need to do it, and within that, you get the home playoff game at Ford Field, first one at the stadium. You need to win that game, right? That is an unquestionable success. I think you still don't complain too much if you win 10 games, you get into the playoffs, and you play a tight one against a better team. That's still incremental improvement. I think missing the playoffs will be a disappointment for this team. There's just too many things going their way, roster-wise, vibes-wise, because whatever, vibes and chemistry do matter in this league. To not capitalize on all the good things going on with this franchise right now, and missing the postseason would that's not just me saying. I guarantee everyone in that building, if they miss the postseason, they would feel like they let people down with the expectations for them.
You think they win the division, and who, if not them, who's the closest to them?
I do think they're going to win the division this year, and it's strange saying that. I usually have always couched that with, I'm never going to bet against Aaron Rodgers' team in the division, but he's not here anymore, guys. And
right,
maybe Jordan Love is really good. Maybe he steps in and is a pretty good quarterback, but I need to see it first. I'm not ready to buy in on Green Bay. I'm not ready to buy in Chicago. So Minnesota's probably the closest. That offense still is pretty good when you look at Justin Jefferson and even what Hawkinson offers that roster. I think Madison's still a solid running back. He may not be Dalvin Cook, but I think they'll still run the ball effectively. And Kirk Cousins has always been in that solidly in that above average tier of quarterbacks, right? He's efficient and does enough to win games. So I think Minnesota's still your biggest competition, but I do think that after watching these two teams play last year, seeing the moves that the Lions made versus the moves the Vikings made, I think the Lions are the better team.
JR, always love when you come on. We've even had your colleague now, the great Nolan Bianchi, on the podcast. Support the Detroit News. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I am.
Nolan was the MVP of my life for 2022. To have support, I guess.
Yes.
Have somebody to lean on, to shoulder some of the load, and not just somebody to lean on. It's not just a body, right? Like he's
great,
reliable, and he's smart, and he's rapidly developing. Nolan's been a godsend for me.
For the former host of Locked On Red Wings, we were colleagues together. See, so had to give him some love. But Justin, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Justin Rogers with us. Please subscribe and check out his work at debtnews.com. And, of course, you can get the Detroit News and follow him on Twitter at Justin_Rogers. They're back at it tomorrow, folks. This has been a Thursday edition of the Locked On Lions.